Just 30 minutes after John Duran got traded, another huge trade between the Mets and the St. Louis Cardinals just occurred as Ryan Helsley, another star closer, is traded and on his way to New York in exchange for some really great prospects that the Mets are now giving up to send over to St. Louis. For the first time in a long time, the St. Louis Cardinals are selling. It's only happened twice in really the last 20 plus years. This is not really a precedent opportunity. So the fact that the Cardinals are selling provides a whole nother dimension of how this trade actually works out. It really gives us insight that the Cardinals are going to go and back out as Shane Bloom is coming into power next year, and that will be a reset there. But for one of the first times, the Cardinals are selling, and that is a huge benefit to the Mets as they get one of the best closers on the market in Ryan Helsley for a really interesting package of players that is now going to St. Louis in this deal. In this video, we'll dive into all four players involved in this trade, give each team a trade grade to see who won, who lost, and how you should feel as a fan. And of course, if you do like this content, I am doing my best to stay as up to date as I can on all the trades that are happening this trade deadline. They're coming left and right, so stay subscribed to be up to date on all of that, and you get other great baseball content from me and other wonderful creators out there as well. Without further ado, let's dive headfirst into this trade and see exactly how both teams made out. Ryan Helsley was one of the more curious cases on the trade block because not everyone knew if they were going to trade him. I've already emphasized that the Cardinals do not sell at the deadline. They have only done it twice in the past 20 plus years. So them selling off their closer, Ryan Helsley, is definitely a very interesting decision. Maybe not a bad one, but definitely not something that a lot of teams expected. There were the odds that it was going to happen, but at the end of the day, the Cardinals never do this. So it is very interesting that they did decide to sell off their really huge star closer, who's been an all-star twice in his career, finished top 15 in Cy Young voting twice, top 10 once. And so far this year, his age 30 season, he's done very well. 1.1 BWAR, 3-1 record, which doesn't really matter for a closer as he's got 21 saves. He actually led all of the major leagues last season with 49 saves. Got 21 this year, not as good, which makes sense. The Cardinals aren't as good this year as they were in 2024, so less opportunity there. Strikes out 10.3 batters per nine. That's right. He has 41 strikeouts across 36 innings pitched. And for a reliever, he doesn't walk a ton of guys. 3.5 walks per nine is definitely not a bad metric. One thing that is interesting to note is that his fielding independent pitching, which is a metric that examines a pitcher's performance, if you remove things like fielding and luck based out of an actual pitcher's performance, it's actually decently higher than it has been since his first All-Star campaign in 2022, a full 1 point higher. FIP is on the same scale as ERA. This year it's a 3.51. The past 3 seasons it's been 2.41, 2.25, and 2.35, suggesting he is actually pitching a little bit worse this year than he has been in the past. Just like their Rogers brother that they acquired earlier today, Helsley is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and the Mets are only playing the rest of his contract for the rest of the season. So the Cardinals are on the hook for about $5.5 million. The Mets on for a little bit more than $2.6 million for the rest of the year. So a decently cheap price tag for one of the best relievers in the game. He will be a free agent, so the Mets are going to have to think long term about how they want to go ahead and fix their bullpen next year. Might be the trade market again. It turns out that's how a lot of playoff teams end up fixing their bullpen year after year. So there's always that option. Again, Helsley's been very good so far in the past. He's consistently had 2 worse seasons, except for 2023, where he only pitched in 33 games due to injury. So this might be the first year he falls a little bit short, but he's going to be close either way. A very reliable back-end bullpen piece is exactly what the Mets need right now. If you look at their bullpen, it is very solid. How can you not love Edwin Diaz, Ryan Helsley, and Tyler Rogers right there in the back end? Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, Gregory Soto, they're really shoring up their bullpen, adding another righty now as they have Gregory Soto and Brooks Raley. And now Tyler Rogers and Ryan Helsley add 2 more righty bullpen arms into a very, very strong bullpen now. The highest ranked prospect heading back to the St. Louis Cardinals is shortstop Jesus Baez, who might end up having to move off of shortstop into third base, but he definitely has the bat to go ahead and make that work. He signed for only $275,000 out of the Dominican Republic in the 2022 international signing class, and his batted ball data really did showcase how that was a huge steal. He's only 20 years old and listed at 5'9", 180 pounds, so he ended up being a very nice steal, and at 20 years old, he's already playing in high A, which is very impressive for a player that young. In 2024, he had some of the highest exit velocities, 90 percentile exit velocity among the Florida State League's players, and that was at age 19 in single A, which is incredibly impressive. You're often going against guys who just came out of college, so a huge, huge boon for Jesus Baez. He has plus power, I wouldn't be shocked to see him reach 20, 25 home runs at the major league level. But if you look at his stats right now, again, he's young for the level, 69 games in high A, Brooklyn so far this year, a 244, 334, 406 slash line. So he's walking a lot. That leads to a 740 OPS. So far, he has struck out 49 times across 254 plate appearances. So even though he has some plus power, that's a solid percentage of not striking out. Walks a decent amount too, 32 walks. Not a big stolen base threat. Speed is probably his weakest stat. He is definitely slow on the base pass. So he is not someone I would expect to steal a lot at the major league level, even though he has 7 stolen bases in the minors. In the minors, steals do not translate well to the major league. So that's one thing that I would not correlate a ton. 10 home runs so far in 2025, with all of them coming at high A. I definitely think Baez is a very interesting candidate. He could stick again at shortstop long term, but it's probably more likely that he ends up at second base. But with the arm strength that he has above average, third base could definitely be in the conversation as well. So that infield versatility is definitely something that should be intriguing, especially given that he's young and will be 20 for the rest of the 2025 season. Baez is without a doubt a top 10 prospect in the Mets system. He's currently ranked 8th in the preseason MLB pipeline rankings and was 6th in the updated Baseball America rankings for the entire Mets system. The second player heading back in this deal is right-handed pitcher Nate Dohm, who was the third-round pick in the 2024 draft by the Mets. He started his collegiate career at Ball State before transferring to Mississippi State in the 2023 season. He played as a reliever at Ball State, but started at Mississippi State, and it seems like he has the potential to stay as a starter long term, which is why he is such a valuable prospect. His best pitch is either his fastball or his slider. You will see scouts arguing either way, but they're both plus pitches, and he has the ability to control both of them. He has above average control for a pitcher, which is always something really great to see. He has two other pitches, a curveball, which is about average, and a changeup that he needs to work on a little bit, which is not necessarily essential. Those three pitches that he has are really good, and the changeup is a good little change of pace that can go ahead and get hitters out. Dohm has had some forearm issues both in college and in the minor leagues, which has impacted his ability to develop into the starter that teams want him to be. But the Mets are very impressed by his work ethic and think he will be a very good starter and can work to develop into a potentially number 4 starter, maybe a low end number 3 starter as well. Dohm has performed very well so far in the minor leagues, splitting time between single A Port St. Lucie and high A Brooklyn. Combined a 3-5 record, 2.87 ERA, striking out 77 in 62 and a third and 2/3 innings pitched. So far at high A, 43 strikeouts and 34 and a third innings pitched. So doing actually a little bit better there. Same with his ERA, a 2.62 in high A across 11 games compared to a 3.18 across 7 in single A. So it seems like he's holding his own, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him reach double A by the end of the year. I would see him probably debut sometime either at the end of 2026 or early 2027. So he could provide an impact somewhat soon to a Cardinals team that is now shifting management in terms of how they are actually run in terms of the GM level and president of baseball operations. So we'll see how that works. But he is a very intriguing prospect who could be a solid starter for the St. Louis Cardinals. The final player who is being traded to the Cardinals and Frank Ellisalt, who is a 19th round pick in the 2024 MLB draft by the New York Mets. And for those who are unfamiliar with the MLB draft, it's only 20 rounds. And although where you're drafted doesn't necessarily reflect your talent level like it does with the NBA, NFL, or NHL, it is interesting because you can generally tell by signing bonuses how much a player is valued coming out of college, more so than their draft slot. But Ellisalt only signed for $50,000, which is actually below what the Mets were allowed to pay him without eating into their actual signing pool, which is $150,000. So the 4-year senior out of Nova Southeastern in southeastern Florida really is an interesting prospect in the fact that he was drafted so low, didn't sign for a lot of money only a year ago. He has put up some very interesting numbers though in the minor leagues so far. He pitched only a third of an inning as a quote unquote rookie in the minor leagues in 2024 at single A. Started this year in single A as well, 18 games, 7 starts, 50 and 2/3 innings pitched, and he struck out 57. And so far in high A, only 5 and 2/3 innings pitched, 2 games, both in relief, long relief, and he struck out 8. So he seems to have a decent mix in terms of being able to strike batters out, and he's not walking a ton of guys either. 21 walks and 56 and a third inning pitch so far this year. Definitely very solid. Actually, in his 2024 debut, he picked up a save. He hasn't had any opportunities so far in 2025, but maybe that's why the Cardinals are picking up. They see that upside. Not a ton to comment about Ellisalt just because there's not a ton out there, but an interesting guy that I'd keep an eye on to see how he develops going forward. Now that we've talked about all the players in this deal, let's go ahead and actually grade this and see how each team made out. We'll start with the Mets, where I'll give this a B plus. This is a very solid trade. It's obvious that they wanted to improve their bullpen, and that's exactly what they did. This is their third trade now, this deadline, that involves a bullpen piece, and Ryan Helsley is absolutely going to slot in as your eighth inning guy. And if you go to my Juan Duran video, you can tell that I think it's very important that a playoff team have a really good back end bullpen cluster of arms that can actually help you win games. If you can have Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, Kodai Senga throw 7 innings and you have 4 guys in the bullpen you can trust, that is a huge, huge value. Ryan Stanek, Taylor Rogers, Ryan Helsley, Edwin Diaz isn't as good as I would say the Phillies' back four is, but that's definitely very solid. And Gregory Soto is a nice fifth option as well. It's not like the other arms in the Mets bullpen are bad per se. They're all relatively old. No one's actually under the age of 30, which is interesting. But I do think that having a nice crop of arms is really important. And they have 5 people who I would be comfortable entrusting at least the seventh or eighth inning of a 1-run game two in the playoffs. And that is so important in my mind when you go into the playoffs. And the Mets have that right now. And that's something that they believed was important, and they are absolutely cashing in. I don't necessarily love that they traded away Jesus Baez. I think he's a very solid piece. And granted, they have a ton of infield depth, which is why I'm more okay with him being traded away. But if you end up trading a Mark Vientos or Ronnie Mauricio, a Luis Angel Acuna, like those are maybe someone who could backfill, because odds are not all 3 of those players are going to be elite at the major league level. So we'll see how that all works out. But as of right now, I would not be super concerned about losing Baez. I think the other 2 players they lost are good, but you're not going to lose any sleep over losing Nate Dohm or Frank Ellisalt. So I would not be super concerned as a Mets fan for losing them. But Baez does sting a little. I do wish they maybe would have acquired a little bit more in terms of going out and getting another back end piece, because I still think there's other bullpens I would like more. I don't necessarily love the combination of moves they made, and that's partially why I'm a little bit lower on this. I think as a cap, Ryan Helsley is really great, but I still think there's a lot of improvement to be done in the bullpen, and it doesn't necessarily solve all the issues that I think they have. So they have a good crop of arms in the bullpen, but still some room for improvement. And then for the Cardinals, I'll give this an A minus. I think this is also very solid. You have JJ Weatherholt as your shortstop of the future. He is knocking on the door. He is dominating. The 2024 draft pick was really, really high on a lot of people's boards, and a lot of people thought he could be the best prospect out of the draft. Right now, that probably is Nick Kurtz, or you could argue that is also maybe Connor Griffin, what he's doing in the minor leagues. But it is without a doubt that right now JJ Weatherholt is one of the top prospects in baseball. So you have someone who's going to man shortstop, and if you look at where they're at right now, maybe Nolan Arenado goes away. Mason Wynn's probably actually going to stick at shortstop. So you move Weatherholt to what, third to second? You trade Brendan Donovan maybe, or he walks in free agency, or something happens there. You get rid of Arenado somehow. I don't know. I just don't see the fit happening super well. But they do have a couple years before Baez comes in. It's always good to add to your prospect stock instead of just saying we need this right now, or we're going to need this in a year. Let's target that. Acquire the best player you can. I think they did that, and they'll figure out fit later. I don't know if Nate Dohm or Frank Ellisalt are really 2 players that I love either. I think Dohm has the potential to be a solid player, but I don't think he reaches that level, unfortunately. I think there's still some glaring issues in his game, and given that he does have a very high work ethic, I am in full support. Big fan, want him to succeed. Don't know if it all comes together though, and I hope it does for his sake and for now Cardinals fans' sakes. But I just don't have 100% faith that what he has in terms of his control and his pitch mix is going to make a really great addition. And Frank Ellis, as I said earlier, just there's not a lot of information out there about him as a 19th round pick out of Nova Southeastern. Has only pitched so much in the minor leagues, so you don't really know exactly what you're getting. The teams do, but as a general public, a little more difficult to figure that out.